Okay. So, several years ago, um, I used to make content about like tarot and the viewer's discernment and intuition if they're going to watch tarot readings. And honestly, this doesn't just apply to the tarot readings, but it applies to any other person that you're receiving or you're seeking some type of counsel, clarity, or advice from. So, I'm going to touch on this topic again because um, the divine is just leading me to talk about it. Um, just be mindful not to forsake your own intuitive abilities whenever you're watching people speak on anything, okay? Anybody. Make sure you do not forsake your own intuitive abilities, your own discernment. Make sure you never at any time idolize anybody that you view or listen to and put their say so above the divine. Um, if anything, you should always be mindful that you're practicing your own intuitive abilities directly with source. When some readers talk about how take what only applies, right? It's supposed to be something that already resonates with you. It's supposed to be something that you've already gotten intuitive knowledge about, okay? You have some sort of insight about, okay? But if you're in a place where you're just completely oblivious to whatever they're talking about, or this is completely new information to you, um, don't be so quick to latch on to whatever that is, okay? Because if you're not careful, you're going to mess around and confuse yourself, okay? Listening to different people over your own intuition, okay? Never become codependent on a reader or a pastor or a friend who's intuitive or who you deem as intuitive. Never become too codependent on other people's insights above your own, okay? And so it's almost like, for example, for anybody who still smokes marijuana or whatever, if you smoke marijuana, I need you to know there are things that are literally, like, in a way, disabled whenever you're under the influence of marijuana. Like, for example, and there's going to be a lot of people who argue against that, right? Um, but from personal experience, when I've smoked marijuana, which I don't smoke right now, um, it will literally prohibit me from dreaming, okay? And I'm somebody, I've always had dreams since I was a little girl, right? So I'm a designated dreamer, okay? So I can tell the difference when I change the chemistry of, you know, who I am by something external to me. I can tell, right? If you are not self aware, okay, about yourself and whatever your divine gifts and abilities are, it's going to be, you're going to be far more susceptible to confusion and illusion, okay? Um, so I really just want to talk about that because there is this energy too, something I don't resonate with, that I see with some of, people who are supposedly spiritually awakened and going through certain levels of their awakening. Some people become grounded in whatever that awakening is, and they kind of they put a cap over their spiritual enlightenment, and they don't necessarily evolve from a particular phase that is required, a phase that is necessary, right? I see some people who develop like all of this pride and they build their self esteem and their confidence off conflict, off being disliked, off um, having run ins with people who are not spiritually aware, people who are compromised, people who are even possessed. And they build an identity off of that, right? And I don't think that's necessarily the destination. So I just want to talk about that because it's not really something I can resonate with. I feel like true confidence right? True self-love, true self-respect, all those things should at all times be rooted in God, be rooted in the divine. It should not be derivative from, oh, people not liking you, okay? Even if you didn't do anything necessarily for those people to dislike you, right? And we understand, we experience that in our walk. But it's like, don't make that your identity. Like, I really want to make that very clear. Um, and I've just been reflecting the past couple of days about different things. If you're somebody who's very loving, okay, you're somebody who is forgiving, you're somebody who is, you take initiative to be understanding of people that you care about, okay, regardless of y'all's differences, even if you have to put distance between you and whoever that is or whoever those people are, you can maintain strong boundaries and still be that loving person, still be that understanding, that forgiving person. You can still be everything that you are at the core, even though, yes, you do to an extent have to develop a tough skin. Yes, you don't want to be in a position where people just kind of abuse that about you, or people take advantage of you at your expense, or you find yourself in situations where it's hard or challenging to get yourself out of it emotionally or mentally, right? And unfortunately, as you grow and evolve, it's not necessarily something you can bypass because there's a necessity to it, right? The necessity of it is, you know, um, helping you find balance and you being that loving, unconditionally loving mediator type of energy, right? So it has its place, it has its proper place, but that's the thing. It has a proper place, and we have to make sure we're consciously putting things in its proper place. You don't want to, become that person that, yeah, you reach a part of your journey where you had to like develop this tough skin and be able to walk away from people that you need to walk away from. But again, be mindful that you don't like unconsciously create limitations and restrictions on yourself that in a way is still kind of benefiting demonic intentions, right? For you to be isolated, for you to be alone, okay, for you to not believe in love and stuff like that. So you still want to hold on to those things about you, right? But still stand firm on your boundaries, right? Meaning, hey, I require, open and honest conversations. I require for mediation to be mutual. I require reciprocity, when it comes to effort, putting in sincere and organic effort, right? You want to you want to basically become steadfast in boundaries, because a lot of times it's not that we don't necessarily have the boundaries, it's a matter of us bending our boundaries because of how much we care about the person, because of how much we love the person, because of how much we want things to, be at peace or work out, okay, or be in harmony. And you have to know that sometimes, even when you are separated from people physically, which may be necessary in that time, that doesn't necessarily mean that the separation um, follows in other realms. And sometimes, it's more fitting for people to try and address things in other realms before they reach the place of addressing it in the physical realm. Um, and so I was just thinking about that energy of forgiveness, and it's like, don't allow your heart to harden to forgiving energies. Does that mean you release your boundaries? No, right? But okay, so I had this dream last night about somebody that I love very dearly, right? And it was a very pleasant dream. However, the way things ended between us wasn't necessarily on good terms. So I've done, the necessary spiritual work. I've done like cutting cords and like praying the energy away and rebuking the energy and setting boundaries, even in the spirit realm, even, you know, in other realms that I know this person can communicate with me through, because of how genuine the connection is, right? But this dream that I had last night, it was a very pleasant dream, and I was a bit surprised that the person was able to get through to me in the dream state, because I'm kind of like in a stubborn place with this person. I'm kind of like intentionally blocking them out, um, and and this is because they were evading, accountability, right? We know that, I know that, he knows that, but our connection is so strong that it's very much so telepathic. This is somebody who can send me music, who can speak to me telepathically, and I kind of just ignore it. And it's like, now, before I even tell y'all the dream that I had, how I know this, or what gives me the confirmation about our spiritual communication, is one of the dreams that he shared with me was me in the Two of Swords. Basically, he came in my room, um, and all of my divine protection, like angels and ancestors, they're literally hovering like over the roof. Like the roof is gone, and it's just all of these angels and ancestors. And Angel Michael was standing next to me in my bed. Um, and this is the dream how he told me, and he basically said I had. This is why I say I was in a Two of Swords, because he said that my eyes were closed. I was holding two daggers across my chest, and even though I turned my head in his direction, acknowledging that he's there, right? Because he's whispering my name. I didn't say anything to him. I didn't respond to him or any of that. And ultimately, Archangel Michael told him to leave, right? So, the dream that I had last night, it's almost like we ran into each other, and it was like this pleasant, like, interaction when we ran into each other. Like, we were just out and about, we ran into each other. And so it started back communication between us, right? Like, we basically was trying to make peace, or he was trying to make peace with me in the dream. And so, boom. So he's texting me and he's confessing to me, like, oh, like how beautiful I am, and how he's proud of me, and he apologized, and he's so sorry, and he's so stupid, and just saying all this stuff, right? Like, just confessing all this energy. But if I'm being totally honest with you, as an avid dreamer, and I can also interpret my own dreams, this wasn't one of those dreams where, oh, you're trying to trick me, you're trying to deceive me. And this is why, messages moving forward, and definitely this video is not going to apply to everybody, because this is going to be, I need y'all to understand, first of all, my life path number is 33. Okay, that's the master teacher, that's the vibration of unconditional love, authenticity, all that. Okay, so it's my messages moving forward, it's not going to resonate with everybody, and certainly not going to resonate with people who want to be grounded in this, like, this grudgeful energy against people who have hurt you or who have disappointed you. Okay, this is not that. Um, but these are people who are open hearted, but who understand that through the betrayals, they were supposed to integrate firmer boundaries. That's what you were supposed to do. You're supposed to integrate firmer boundaries. You can be open, or you can be receptive to people making an effort to improve. Okay, you have to understand that, yes, you should be able to expect change from your boundaries, because maybe that's something that's new for you or new for them, right? Experiencing someone with genuine, true, firm boundaries, who are unwavering, like they can love you, they can care about you, but their boundaries are firm and unwavering. Loving you is not enough for them to bend those boundaries, right? The boundaries are supposed to remain no matter what. Now, what they do on their behalf, okay, to mend things with you, understanding that you're not going to bend those boundaries to make it easier for them to do their necessary shadow work, then yeah, at least you would know that the efforts that they're making is truly sincere. Now, going back to if you're going to be somebody who, and naturally we do it, right? Naturally we seek counsel from one another, or safe spaces, or people who are generally wise, for clarity, for guidance and confirmation, right? That's just natural. However, just because people are presenting themselves like they're sharing wisdom, they're sharing insight, that does not mean that is for you. So it's necessary for you to spend time in solitude, in meditation, in prayer. It's necessary for you to get real familiar with God's voice on your own. It's very necessary for you to get familiar with what are the ways of your spiritual communication that is evident. Like you have ample evidence to know, like, this is where I'm most keen, in my receptivity. Okay, you never want to deny um, what God is communicating to you directly. And I feel like another thing too, through all of these betrayals, through us encountering demons, angels, distorted energies, people who are imprisoned and things like that, right? Because it's different dynamics of it all, right? It's different levels to this shit. You, you should be far more clear to recognize Satan and recognize God on a basic, like, just the basic level. Can you recognize what's evil, and can you recognize what's divine? Because another thing that I've been meditating on is yes. So in my situation, in some of y'all situation, there was a karmic influence or a third party influence, right? But and this is not to excuse people's actions and behaviors, because yes, some of these people have gone as far as invested in black magic and witchcraft and horrific things that really put our lives in danger. Um, but kind of going back to that phrase, like, oh, hurt people, right? No, again, I'm not excusing their behaviors. However, from a mature space, from a higher mind, if you're truly a higher being, right? Let me one moment. A higher being, our mind. Okay, I'm trying to make sure you guys can hear me. Um, then you understand that whoever's being activated against you, whatever their reasons, whatever their motives may be, I always think about the anime Bleach. Okay, when I feel like that's a great example. The anime Bleach, right? It's like the people who become like hollows and stuff like that, or it's always like this battle for the person's soul, okay, before they fully are consumed by that demonic energy. So it's almost like Ichigo, and they're battling the demon. 111 on the clock. They're battling the demon that's trying to consume the soul that is compromised at the time because of some type of trauma, because of some type of wounding, something that makes them susceptible to possession. They're, in a way, performing an exorcism that it can get very, like, hostile, it can get very violent, because of how close the demon feels like it has their grips on that soul. And so they're battling you, and they're battling that person. So here's the thing: the soul is conflicted. The soul that the demon is trying to consume. For those of you who are familiar with Bleach, who are not familiar with Bleach, I would recommend you watching that anime. Um, and I honestly, it's been years since I watched this. I'm probably going to go back and watch it from the beginning. Um, the soul that's trying to fight against that hollow or them being consumed, I need y'all to, it's like that soul is fighting too. That soul is fighting too. And in a way, we're kind of like Ichigo. We're kind of like the ones that are very, very integrated, very powerful in our spiritual abilities and our weaponry. And so our health is, a necessity. However, do they win every battle? No, they don't. Sometimes that demon consumes that person. And as a result, they have to take out that person to prevent further destruction from whoever that person is connected to, because that's typically how it goes, right? It's like they'll always try to consume one person, like the demon, and then try to consume others that that person is closely attached to, right? And so that energy of saving yourself, that is something that you have to implement at all times with anybody. That's something you never let go of. However, sometimes those people who are like on a brink of losing their soul to a demon, sometimes those people can be saved. I want to say there are scriptures that talk about like when your brother or when your fellow man is weak, right? Being their strength. No, this is not saying compromising yourself. This is not saying overgiving. This is not saying allowing yourself to be drained, to be depleted. And that's what all of these cycles of us experiencing betrayals or us experiencing how things backfire and stuff like that. If we're not on top of our spiritual maintenance, if we're not being firm with our boundaries, we see what happens to us as a result whenever we let those things fall by the wayside. You're never supposed to take off your spiritual armor ever with anybody. You're never supposed to take off your helmet. You're never supposed to take off any of that. Your shield, you never put it down. You never put it down, right? And so I want to say too, for those of us who do, for those of us who do watch tarot or things like that, we're seeking like clarity and spiritual guidance. Um, just be mindful of the messenger. Be mindful of the messenger. Be mindful of the messages, and don't attach to messages that just simply does not apply to you or your situation. Um, Now, if you guys know for a fact that somebody that you've been with, like when y'all were official, they cheated on you or they hit you, they, like just did something like completely egregious. Absolutely. Like, no, you should not be, trying to reason and ration with somebody who's put their hands on you. You get what I'm saying? No. Like, the quickest I feel like some things are just overly obvious. You get what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to overcomplicate it. Okay? Now, if you know there's obvious interferences, if you've received inklings while you were like closer, like more closely attached to that person, that, oh, this person is self sabotaging because they feel insecure. You guys are going to have things to refer to, like certain conversations that were had, certain dreams. You're going to have direct access to pieces of clarity, okay, where then you can watch your reading and whatever they're talking about, you can match what applies to what your intuition, what God has already revealed to you, okay? But we have to be mindful of idol worship. And this is something I talked about years ago. Some people, they leave the church, right? They attach to a spiritual community and but they maintain idolatry. They just find another person to make their idol. I'm not here to be anybody's idol. I'm gonna tell you that now. I'm not here to be anybody's idol. I'm here to give you a piece of counsel, to give you a piece of wisdom, to utilize my gifts, my dreams, my testimonies, my visions, to possibly provide guidance, confirmation, clarity, right? Something like that. And to inspire you, to motivate you, and to empower you in God. That's what I'm here for. Um, I'm not here to um, create some type of movement. Like I said, like there's a reader on YouTube, and let me see. Right, and see, that's the thing. When you're really tapped in with the divine, you found ways to directly communicate with source. you're not going to be getting caught up in tides or ripples of masses of people that's attached to an idol, that's leading them down a certain path that may not necessarily be aligned with God. You get what I'm saying? So it's like there's a reader on here. She's constantly boasting about her beauty, her money, and it's off the guise of, and this is the thing. This is why you really have to master and pray for discernment, y'all, because she uses certain customs that do align with spiritual awakenings. Like, yeah, that co-worker, that relative, that partner, that child. You feel me? That job. These people may be targeting you in these places, in these environments. Yes, that is true. However, um, you just have to have discernment, okay, and make sure you're not in other ways by satanic forces still being turned into what they want you to become. You know what I'm saying? But they're just finding like a different avenue. They're using spiritual language and lingo. You know, they're trying to be relatable to you. You know what I'm saying? To convince you to lower yourself, but just in a different way, in a way that's more glamour. Okay, a glamour that's more relatable to wherever your current version of self is, like wherever you are in your evolution of soul. You know what I'm saying? Those who are meant to understand and receive this, I really feel like you will understand like what I'm trying to say. Hey, oh man, you got dreams of love and genuine romantic gestures, right? All dreams that you have are not warning dreams. All dreams that you have are not dreams that you should automatically put into the category of, oh, this person is trying to do a love spell. This person is trying to bind me. This person is trying to do this. No, some of your dreams are divine. I'm going to say this because God is telling me that it's going to resonate with some people. Has God ever revealed himself to y'all in a dream? And what I mean by that, have you ever experienced God as this golden, white, platinum light, right? Um, and there's like this immediate healing, regeneration, replenishment that you feel, especially in the waking state. Like when you wake up from that dream and you just feel something like refreshed about yourself. Um, I personally have had two sightings of the divine in that manner. This golden platinum white combination of light, very very bright, um, almost like you're literally this close to the sun, right? I've had encounters like that with the divine, and I want to. So, for example, like with dreams, if you're like a real dreamer, right? That's your gift. You don't just see what you see in the dream. You also feel that dream. You feel the dream. You see the dream. Your senses are like heavily activated in that dream, and that matters, right? I'm saying this because use these things to discern all things, all things, to discern your dreams, to discern whomever you're listening to. Pay attention to that, right? Pay attention to that. Because I'm telling you, like some of these people will be sitting up and they have their partners. Like for those of you who are single, some of these readers and stuff like that, they have their partners and stuff like that. But it's like the bulk of what they're telling you is the bulk of what they're telling you is like toxic shit. You know what I'm saying? or things to mislead you about your love situation, okay? Um, Now, I just don't want you guys, some of you guys who this applies to, I don't want you to have like your sacral chakra, like to have that be toyed with, or you be conflicted, because God is revealing something to you, but then you watch a reading that's like completely in opposition to what God has already revealed to you, because it does stir up an internal conflict. It does have the capability of creating unnecessary emotional storms. It's almost like man-made disasters. Sometimes man-made disasters can be like by counsel or advice, information that doesn't truly apply to you. Okay, and if you lack the discernment to be able to tell, you're not. That's not a good place to be. Okay. Um. So again, if you already have inklings about whatever that person is talking about, if you've already received your own personal clarity, then yes, more than likely that situation applies. And even after you chew up the meat, like the elders say, spit out the bones, right? Even still, when you consume or you listen to what somebody is telling you, you have to separate the wheat from the tares of that conversation. Meaning, some of those things may apply, others may not. You need to pray for clarity. You need to ask God for clarity. You need to discern, okay? You need to reflect. You need to introspect, right? But the safest way to maneuver through all these different universes, and what I mean by universes is the energy fields of others, the safest way is to become very clear, very familiar with your own universe, with your own energy field, okay? Um, and honestly, when you continuously work at becoming one with Source, or always consciously referring to God to rebalance yourself, rebalance your mind, rebalance your heart, your emotions, right? God is literally the clearest lens of life that you can access. I don't know, it's just, what if, what if all the distortion, all the discordance, all of the conflict amongst ourselves and one another, like, what if that's like a goal, that's been a goal, that's still being like accomplished by demonic forces? You know what I'm saying? And no, this is not saying that. Oh my God! But discernment is just is, you gotta have discernment, man. You gotta have discernment. You have to be able to tell who's masquerading themselves as light in all arenas of life. Okay, don't assume that, oh, because they read tarot. Don't assume because they're a pastor or a minister in a church. You feel me? Don't assume because they dress a certain type of way, or they dress modest, or they dress, they dress like this, or they dress, not so modest. You have to be able to see people on a soul level. Pay attention to people's eyes. Pay attention. Just pay attention to everything that is available to you. Okay? When you're connecting with people, places, and things, pay attention. Do not ignore yourself. Don't ignore your internal navigational system. Don't ignore the voices that you hear, and discern whether those voices are demonic or divine. That's something we're supposed to always actively. That's something that you never turn that off. You never turn it off, right? So, saying all this, was it a part of my journey to put distance between certain family members that I love more than anybody and any. Yes, that was a part of my journey. Do I still pray for them? When I'm guided to, I do. And I'm not just a regular prayerful person. Like, I really get so caught up in prayer, praise and worship, that I speak in other tongues. All I need is a private space. I don't have to be, at a church. And that's the thing. Like, I'm not one of those people who's spiritually enlightened that's going to tell you that, oh, you shouldn't go to church anymore. Why would I tell you that? Why would I tell you that something that God initially created to be safe spaces for us? Why would I tell you that just because you become spiritually enlightened or awakened that you're not supposed to go to church anymore? No, that's not the message. Should you discern what churches you go to and be a part of? Absolutely. But you're supposed to discern who you go and get therapy from. If it's like some type of psychiatrist, you need to discern psychiatry. You need to discern what church. You need to discern new friends, new friend groups, or invitations. You need to discern spiritual communities. You need to discern what you read, books. You need to discern videos. You need to discern everything. You never turn off your discernment. Never. Okay? Something that I talk about often is that God is the creator. Satan is a thief. He does not create anything. Okay? He tries to steal the blueprint from the divine and create, quote unquote, his version of what's already created. His goal is to steal, kill, destroy. Okay? Roam the earth, seeking whom he may devour. Okay? Meaning, things that God has put in place to help us. There's always going to be satanic forces trying to infiltrate it. Okay? Make you feel like this is not something you can refer to. This is something that it must be all demonic. You get what I'm saying? Basically rob you of proper resources. Okay? So just be mindful of that. And no pressure. However long, whichever journey of finding those safe places apply to you, make peace with that. Okay? Because it's going to look different from other people. And it may resonate with others, right? However, first and foremost, your safe space is supposed to be with the omnipresent, omniscient source, which is God. God is with you everywhere you go at all times, even if you are in the lowest valley. You need to know that. And it makes me emotional, you know. It makes me emotional. Because it's like, don't let your experiences with people who are lost or who are possessed or who are not even man, who are demonic, just fully gone hollows. Don't allow your experiences to deter you from you being a divine instrument. Okay? You being a vessel, a vehicle. So I'm gonna share this because I know it applies. I have a client and we were joking, because he's a really big guy, really big white guy, buff, tough looking, intense looking guy, tattoos everywhere. He almost looks like the guys from like Peaky Blinders, and like I was joking with him last night. I said, yeah, at first glance to a black person who is ignorant, okay, they will look at you like you some type of Nazi, because that's how he looks. Like, he just has that exterior, but he's literally like a gentle giant. One of the sweetest people you will ever meet. However, when it comes to how protective he is over people who are innocent and people that he care about, he it can get scary. But in the name of justice, you know what I'm saying? Um, but he was telling me about an experience he had where there was this young boy, okay, black boy, who was like in the middle of the road in their neighborhood because something happened with his bike, his tire or something like that. And so he pulled his truck over because he was, he offered to help him, but he could tell the boy was getting like nervous when he was approaching him, and he got on the phone with someone, possibly his mother, and was like, this huge white guy is like walking towards me, right? Coming from a place of rightful, reasonable, rational ignorance, considering, the abuse, right, that we've experienced, okay? Um, and when he actually spoke to him, and he was like, hey, son, what's going on? Do you need any help? So he told him what was wrong, and he helped the little boy with his bike. Or it could have been like a teenager, but he helped the boy with his bike. And I told him that interaction was supposed to happen because, yes, there is a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear that a lot of people are like moving out of from a place of ignorance, because they basically associate particular encounters with a whole group of people, and that's not fair. It's not fair to you, it's not fair to the rest of those people, right? And how God uses us or creates situations and scenarios for us to give people hope, for us to let people know, like, yeah, everybody's not out to get you, not everybody is evil. There's still kind-hearted people out there closer than you think. You don't have to always be on alert, okay? Basically, aging yourself or fucking yourself up because of these hormones, the fight or flight hormones that you're always releasing into your energy, off an illusion, off of something that's probably not what the fear is trying to convince you that it is, right? And again, God doesn't give us a spirit of fear. So these are things that we're supposed to pay attention to. Should you be vigilant? Yes. Should you be aware at all times? Socially aware and self-aware? Yes. Because there are situations where, yeah, sometimes a big white guy or a big black guy approaching you may not be, the best situation. It may be something hostile, but that doesn't mean all situations like that are hostile. And the challenge for those of us who gets prejudged, okay, people prejudge us because they misconceive us, or they're looking at us from a place of fear, okay? Even if that fear is them feeling triggered by us, them feeling insecure, or about who we are, even if it's just what you look like your beauty or something like that. At the end of the day, it's like we have to make sure we don't allow those reactions to change who we are at the core, like, or change us for the worse, right? Or put us in a place of becoming what these energies have assumed that we are, because more than likely it's not them, they're like the middleman, and they're being puppeted, they're being used by satanic forces to make us feel like, like people are gonna keep, it seems like every time, everywhere I go, like, oh my god, top of my back is itching. It's like everywhere I go, why are these people responding to me like this? Why are these people reacting to me like this? Like, and I'm not doing anything. I'm like the sweetest person you can know, this, that, and the third. Okay, well, keep being the sweetest person that somebody can know. Okay, but implement your boundaries. Okay, if it's something like going to a place that you love to go to, don't stop going to that place just because the people there are in some type of hive high thought. That ain't got shit to do with you. Maybe that whole dynamic is the way that it is, and you're meant to keep going there to basically like lower the veils off of their eyes by you just authentically being who you are anyway. Don't modify or damper who you are just because they feel uncomfortable. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like I I made a few points in this video, but I just really, I don't know. It's like, don't rob yourself um, of beautiful like experiences and how you get to choose to perceive your life and your journey. You know what I'm saying? Just because other people are trying to draft you into their lens of how they perceive their own life, even if that's them trying to make you the villain in the situation, even if that's them trying to create some type of competition or beef with you, that's their story that they're choosing, okay, to narrate for themselves. Will they try to project things onto you and try to force feed you or like forcibly place you in their story? Yeah, but that doesn't mean you have to comply. You get to choose. You know what I'm saying? Um, because I was hearing, those situations where it seemed like people would switch up on us, and a lot of us have several stories where people switched up on us. But once upon a time, things were good between y'all. Why not just choose to hold on to the pleasant memories, even if you have to, if the situation resulted in you guys having to separate or put distance, why not just hold on to the pleasant memories involving whoever those people are, right? And making peace with the situation. Like, instead of feeding the storm, you can acknowledge the storm. You can acknowledge the storm. You can take safety measures to protect yourself from that storm, right? But you can still choose what vibrations to consume from the situation. And it's like chewing up the meat and spitting out the bones. Let's say the meat are the pleasant memories involving whomever those people, places, and things are. The bones is the unpleasant interactions or the unpleasant things that happen, or them, being compromised, or them being triggered by you, or them switching up on you. Those are the unpleasant memories. But you don't have to hold on to that. You leave it where it started. You leave that with those people. Depending on the situation, you may be guided to have an honest conversation, okay? Bring things to their awareness. But that's pretty much all you can do, okay? It's quotes and phrases that the elders have passed down to us, over the years and decades. You can take the horse to the water, but you can't make the horse drink. That's a horse. The horse can whoop your ass. You know what I'm saying? Like, meaning, just because you may know that some counsel or advice may be the best in the situation, all you really can do is just share that information. Okay. But don't attach yourself to the outcome. Don't attach yourself to, like, oh, I just really wish this person would get it and da da da. Don't attach yourself to that. Because we have to be mindful of what's fighting that person and what's also fighting you. What's fighting that person but also trying to take you out through that person's fight, right? So in the event that whatever is fighting them or fighting for their soul begins to fight you, yes, you fight and defend yourself accordingly against those demonic spirits. Yes. Okay. But you also have to depart from the source. You have to depart from that universe of that person, their energy field. You have to depart. Okay. And there's some situations in like spirituality and like paranormal stories where people can be out and about and a spirit or entity will try and attach themselves to them and follow them home. Yes, that can happen. However, again, you must always still do what is required of you. You never take off the armor of God. You never take it off. You recognize who your real enemy is. Okay? And you do what is required to defend yourself from that enemy. Period. So yeah, the person that I still very much so love, that I know is real love, because looking at the Empress, I know it's real love because of what I've done to like the cording magic that I've done, like basically just sever cords, and I've burned things that belong to the person. I don't have it anymore. I got rid of everything that I own that belonged to that person. Deleted messages, deleted all that stuff. So I understand that even if I've done all of that and I'm still picking up on this person's energy, I still, have this love for this person. Um, they still have this love for me. I can recognize that the love is real, but still not bend my boundaries. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I can send that person. And I feel like, and that's just something we have to be mindful of because of how powerful we really are, especially when people do hurt us. Like, don't underestimate how powerful it is when you do walk away. Don't underestimate how powerful it is when you do set those boundaries. Okay, you don't bend them. But yeah, and another thing too is like, don't be so easily offended by people who are trying to project toxicity onto you. Like, don't be easily offended or feel like you have to be quick to defend yourself. Okay, when that's literally what they want you to do. Um, like for example, 144. Moving forward, right? And I'm pretty sure that as long as I have this run on social media, like anytime I post on social media, there's going to be some type of negative projection, right? Um, there's going to be somebody who is attention seeking and they've learned to gather attention by being toxic. But that's them. That's their life. That's their story. That has nothing to do with me. That has everything to do with them, right? Um, I don't know. It's just a lot of things are kind of just played out. Once you experience things often enough, you do develop like a very tough exterior to things that just simply don't belong. It does not belong in your mind, your body, your soul, your heart. It doesn't belong. If you know you're somebody who's a sweetheart, anybody being toxic or trying to create toxicity with you, that doesn't belong. That doesn't belong. And um, you should never internalize other people's toxicity. You should never do that. Um, it's not something that you need to prove yourself against or about. It's not something that you need to aggressively defend yourself about. None of that. That's them. That's their stuff. That's their stuff. And honestly, if you're doing something right, if you're doing something that's promoting the Most High, you should expect demonic energy to oppose you. You should expect that. Yeah. And even if other people buy into the illusion, like when others group themselves together and stuff like that, and they're projecting toxicity onto you, or even like false accusations to try to convince others that you're demonic or something. It's like, okay, again, those who have wisdom, those who understand, those who know God. Like, we've seen the first examples of that through God, like through prophets and prophetess and people, in biblical stories and biblical times. You know what I'm saying? Like the opposition of evil, right? Um, and that's why, even though many of us may not resonate with being perfect necessarily, this is why God has given us examples of people who are perfect in the Bible, but who were still met with evil opposition. Okay? That's why I talk about Job. And even if we don't talk about others, we can always refer to Jesus. We can always refer to Yeshua, right? Yeshua was perfect. Perfect. Literally, like even his whole birth process, like how he came. It wasn't through sex. It was through we know his story, right? He's never done any evil acts to anybody, and he was still met with some of the most egregious like opposition, right? So these are supposed to be foundational. These are supposed to be foundational things for us to hold firm to. Okay, whenever we encounter evil in opposition, yeah, so it's okay if your loved ones believe lies about you and they take actions based off of those lies. That doesn't mean it's going to take away from how hurtful it is, but I mean, just do what is required to get through that hurt and make sure you don't allow that hurt to turn you bitter, okay, or to turn you into something that you're not, or like try to recreate or remold you at the hands of Satan. It's like, no, you rely on God to remold you with the energy that you're now holding, like this pain and the betrayal, and your mind being in a place where you are fragile to um, demonic thoughts or demonic infiltration. Okay, you know, um, hold on to God. Even when you begin to lose things or lose people, and there's storms happening in your life, hold on to God. Like, I don't know how to like express that like even more than like just hold on to God. Some of us, we experience we experience moments of our life where we have little support, little to no support, because it's easy for people to convince themselves that they love themselves. It's easy for people to convince themselves that they're truly confident, that they believe in God, that they have faith in God, when there are people or other people supposedly supporting them or supposedly on their side. It's easy for people to convince themselves or be convinced that, yeah, I love God and God loves me and I love myself. But when that support is not there, when it's not consistent, okay, that is when you will find it most challenging to know that you are worthy, to know that you're valuable, to know that you're meaningful, to know that you're cared for, to know that you're loved. For example, some of you guys, you're going to see this video or watch it from the beginning. There's times when I share messages where I have people, who click on, click off. Sometimes there's nobody on the live. But I continue sharing the message because it's not about that. What it's about is knowing that you have something valuable to say. You are worth expressing yourself and showing up for yourself, even if nobody else shows up for you, even if people manipulate or people abuse their attention or even have a shortened attention span. That shouldn't affect the attention that you have on yourself. That shouldn't affect the attention, the proper perception of the attention that God places on you. Okay? So, yeah, that's what I wanted to really share with you guys. And it's going to take you far. It's going to help you save yourself from a lot of unnecessary encounters and interactions once you truly master loving yourself. Once you truly master this undeniable, unbreakable, unconditional love connection with the divine, you have to master that, because people will be flaky. People will always be flaky. You have to master that. Because even like the illusion of little to no support is really an illusion. It doesn't matter what satanic energy or people who are jealous or triggered by you, it doesn't matter how desperately they try to convince you otherwise. You do have genuine support. There are people who support you behind the scenes. No, you are not living a life where there's nobody cares for you, nobody loves you, nobody's there for you, nobody. Those are lies. Those are lies. It's not true. It's not true. It's not. Okay? But it's like you have to make sure you don't become flaky with yourself. Don't become flaky towards yourself, and don't become flaky with God just because mankind or others are flaky. Okay? You have to understand that sometimes those people who are flaky, anyway, you have to understand that a lot of times, people are flaky or they have a short attention span because this is something that's manifested within themselves. This is something that they struggle with when it comes to themselves, okay? Like, it's easier to disperse their attention to several different other things, people and places, or idols, okay? More so than them maintaining that attention on themselves properly, okay? Um, a lot of people find value and worth in maintaining loyalty with other people, places, and things, opposed to maintaining that loyalty with themselves. Okay, so this is why everybody has to responsibly master self loyalty, being loyal to yourself, being loyal to what makes you happy, being loyal to what you feel like is a part of you, or what you feel like is in alignment for you or to you. We all have to maintain that. We all have to maintain that. Okay. So yeah, you guys. And I feel like it's actually a healthy thing to experience that, because it's like you don't want to give people the power to change or shift your mood or shift your energy or shift your perception of yourself or perception of things that you're into. You don't want to give people that power, okay? Because when you are somebody who's truly organically powerful within yourself, that is something that they will try to do. That is something that they will try to do. I'm telling you, I live it. I've lived it. Don't give people that power. Don't give people that power. There's gonna always be people who are stuck in this illusion of thinking that the way for them to obtain power is by abusing their energy with somebody else who truly is powerful, and feeling like they're they're picking and probing a person's self-esteem by revoking their presence. As long as God never revokes his presence from you, you have everything and all the support that you would ever need in life. And as much as people regurgitate certain customs and traditions, and people play the role, a lot of people play the role, okay, of being connected to God. People play the role. A lot of people are not authentic in their connection with the divine. So when they encounter people who are, it's intimidating, it's threatening. They feel that it's threatening. They define in their minds that, this is something that triggers me. Okay? So yeah, it's like you have to keep the way that people are stubborn, okay, in identifying themselves with their trauma or with their wounds and stuff like that, and just becoming honestly internalizing like their self hatred and then projecting that onto somebody who loves themselves. It's like you have to be just as stubborn with loving yourself. You have to be just as stubborn with being loyal to your cause, loyal to yourself, loyal to the things that you believe you are supposed to be doing. You have to be just as stubborn behind your self expression. Be just as stubborn in your walk with the divine. Be just as stubborn with your faith. Be stubborn about it. Be stubborn about it. Okay? Yeah. But never allow yourself to be converted to evil. Yeah. And don't allow what looks like strong influence by others, don't allow that to discourage how influential you are, okay, by standing with God no matter what, no matter who's there with you, no matter who's not there, okay? That's how devoted we're supposed to be. That's how unwavering we're supposed to be. It's like the scripture that said, like, even though others will forsake you, God will never forsake you. But you have to also match that energy with God. Don't forsake God in return. And if anything, when others do forsake you, that should drive you even more to never forsake God. God is going to outlive and outlast anybody that you create a bond with in life. People will flake. That doesn't mean that will be permanent with all people. Okay, it's like you give people grace, but you can give them grace over there. You can give them grace over there. Like, hey, right? You don't have to be here in my energy field. Okay, throwing off the weather over here. Okay, while I give you grace. Okay, so again, remembering those boundaries. Mm-hmm. But yeah, mm. And it's going to be inevitable for you to align with others who are also mastering that in their life. People who were close to losing their soul, close to having their identity, their true authentic identity, be compromised, okay, because of what they were exposed to at a young age, okay. There were people who were in battle for their own souls. Like, that's literally what's going on all around us, okay. And you're going to inevitably align with people who have successfully conquered those battles over their soul, okay, and who have mastered, like, really putting that what is it called, that chastity belt over their soul when it comes to demonic interferences and encounters, right? And so it's inevitable for us to, like, master our boundaries with that. And you're going to have people who are in older phases of your life or different versions of yourself when you were more so like on the losing end of your soul. You're going to have those people. They're going to, first of all, they're going to abuse you being like almost on the losing end. And they're going to manipulate that, right? They're going to use that to taunt you. Oh, you need to work on this, and I don't like you when you do this, and you should stop drinking, and you get so scary when you get drunk and stuff like that. Oh, I wish you could get better and, overcome this. And then when you overcome it, sometimes those same people, they're gonna turn around and say, it's like that saying that the same ones who will bless you will curse you, right? Then once you accomplish or you conquer those battles, some of those same people are going to then make it, try to encourage you to revert back to something that you've already conquered. And you have to be able to recognize it for what it is, to stand up for yourself, stand your ground, and be firm in your boundaries, right? And hold them accountable, period. It's the trickery of it all, right? You have to be able to discern manipulation, okay, and discern it also. Like, this is not a me thing. This is a them thing. This is not a me thing, right? Yeah, and that's why sometimes people who don't change, people who are stuck in the past or stuck like being older versions of themselves, yeah, like it's kind of inevitable for you to leave them there, okay? Because you're growing, you're ascending. How are you going to ascend and simultaneously descend? No, you got to do one or the other. You're either going to ascend or you're going to descend. You're not going to be doing both. It don't work like that. But any event, you trip up, you take a few steps back, whatever the case may be. Who do you need to connect with, tap into, to be pushed further ahead or to ascend? God. Don't think it's gonna be those people. Okay? You're gonna always meet a new person, different people as you ascend or throughout different versions of yourself. There's gonna be people attached to every version of yourself that you're outgrowing. Okay? Some of those people you will inspire for them to grow, heal, evolve, ascend as well, especially if they want access to you. Some of those people you will inspire, right? It's like a domino effect. And others are going to cheat themselves by allowing jealousy or greed or covetousness or any of those things to drive them, right? Opposed to love driving them, understanding driving them, forgiveness driving them. And we should never at any time internalize their self unforgiveness. Because some people, they're in opposition to us because they failed to forgive themselves. Okay. And that's just the reality. Um, that's the reality. I don't need to modify my authenticity or superficialize my authenticity just because onlookers or viewers or people who, you're not driving this vehicle, you're not walking in my shoes, just because they disapprove of how I'm doing something, how I'm expressing myself. If anything, I'm going to continue expressing myself authentically, and then hopefully they understand. Let me detach. Let me find somewhere else that's most in alignment with me. But no, I'm not going to. No, I'm not going to modify to what's fitting for them. They're going to have to find elsewhere that's more fitting for them. And this is how you inevitably force people who don't belong out of your energy. That's it. It's how you force them out. Because if they, and they're gonna always expose themselves. Like if they stick around anyway, um, and they're being rude, they're being inconsiderate, they're being mean, they're being evil, straight up, right? Then that shows you what energy you're dealing with. It's nothing to be confused about. They're literally showing you who they are and what their motives are and who they're working for. Okay? They're showing you their weakness. Because regardless of the rituals and witchcraft and all this stuff that people got to do to be just as powerful as divinity, their power will never surpass divinity. Because you can't rely on darkness because we're all made of light and dark. So they can't rely solely on that. It only happens to those who are susceptible to fear mongering. And that's why sometimes I like to reference the It movie. Because when those kids realized that they just had to be brave and courageous, he was no longer able to consume them, to kill them. Okay? Because they weren't being driven by fear. They're being driven by this boldness of spirit, which is the spirit associated with God. Okay? Yeah. And I love it. I love us. I love those of us who, in all of our arts and crafts and our skills and our visions and our abilities to influence and relate. I love our creations because I'm thinking about Monsters Inc. Like they showed us in Monsters Inc. When they can't get the child to be afraid or to scream, it's like they get no fuel, right? And they literally train themselves on how to become scarier so they can win the screams from these children. It's like, but if you can't properly or successfully scare that child, then you get no fuel, you get no power. It's that simple. It's that simple. Sometimes people involve themselves in situations that cost them their lives because of the fear of how others will see them if they don't defend themselves the way people say they should defend themselves. Like this is that energy of I think Glorilla has said something on the lines in one of her songs. But she was like, if you challenge somebody to fight you or something like that, and the person don't come to fight you or they don't come outside or whatever, then that must mean that they're afraid of me. No, that's not what that means. If anything, that person they're not dumb. They're not dumb. Okay? Because make it make sense. Why would you intentionally throw yourself into a battle that can be avoided? It's sad, you know, especially when I see those situations with girls who are like attractive, like they're naturally attractive, they're naturally beautiful, and there have girls who feel like they're not as attractive, or they feel threatened by that female's beauty, who try to lure the beautiful girl, into some type of conflict. And y'all know those situations where they will literally cut up the girl's face or try to destroy her face, throw acid on her face, like, but intentionally attack her face. That's what it's giving. Like, that's what it's giving. So you can't allow people's definitions of courage and strength to override God's definition of courage and strength, of wisdom, actually, because that's what it is, wisdom. Okay? And just because, you know, they are part of like this hive mind type of thing, it's like you have to be stronger than people who group together in ignorance. You have to know that it's not going to override wisdom. Ignorance will never override wisdom. Okay? And it only overrides a person when they give in to ignorance. They need you to give into the ignorance. They need you to throw away the wisdom that God has already provided about that. That's what they're relying on. Um, so yeah, why not continue to be threatening to evil? Because that's really what it is. Never mind the person that is operating through. Yeah, continue being a threat to evil. Continue making evil feel uncomfortable. Continue being that. That's what we're supposed to do. Make them feel so uncomfortable, make them feel so humiliated, pointless, useless. Okay? Their efforts are gaining them nothing. By choosing wisdom every time, choosing God every time, choosing to embrace and embody yourself even more. Like the very person that triggers people to attack you, and you know you're not doing anything directly to harm anybody, you're supposed to be that person even more. Be that person even more. Don't fall into these tactics of feeling like you gotta prove something. Okay, to who? Prove to who? Who are you proving it to? Why? Who are they? How much say so do they really have over your life for real? Okay, because a lie, I mean, a lie can only, you know, get so far, and you have to understand, depending on who that lie is coming from, you know, whatever debris, okay, that's birthed from that, whatever is birthed from that lie will manifest in the liar's life, not yours. I don't care what they do to manipulate things outside of you. Okay? If they're not invited into your mind, your body, your soul, your heart, they're simply not invited. And when they try to force themselves, they're in violation, meaning now they're under judgment. And now they're going to have to face karma. Now, just let them formulate their own weapons and tell God what are they okay with manifesting in their own lives. Okay, to hopefully edify them or banish them. Okay? If these are people who want to toy with your mind, or people who want to use mind games and narcissistic tactics and stuff like that, you know how God talks about getting somebody over to a reprobated mind? That's what that looks like. That's what that looks like. People want you to lose your mind. People want to like these games, like with insurance companies or families and stuff, and insurance fraud. And people want to make it seem like something's wrong with your mind or something, but it's obvious that, you know, you're an intellectual being. You know, you're enlightened and stuff like that. You're really smart, right? I mean, the lie will never outlive the truth. Okay. Yeah. So you got to build up your endurance, because your endurance is for a good cause. If your endurance is for a good cause, continue enduring. Okay. Don't let materials, and don't let, you know, people who create their own value systems, don't ever replace God's value system or your value system with other people's. Don't do that. Don't do that, because when you think about it, a lot of it is like trying to change you from being who you are authentically. Like that's the ultimate goal. Like even when we talk about destiny swapping or people mimicking or this copycat energy, it's like they want to change you from being who you are that triggered them in the first place. And then oftentimes they will try and become you. No, I'm not giving up who I am. Like I'm only gonna, be sharpened in who I am. I'm only going to. It's like how a lot of weapons are made with iron and metals, and that phrase "iron sharpen iron." When people create weapons against you, you use those weapons to sharpen yourself. Like, damn, I'm that powerful that you had to do all of that. Key, I'm that powerful that you had to do all of that. Hmm. My truth telling, my truth speaking, my truth seeking, my truth being is that powerful, that intimidating, that intense, that severe, that threatening, that you have to do witchcraft, that you have to do noise campaigns, and you have to slander and do defamation, you have to do all because I'm that powerful, because I'm that strong willed, because I'm that strong minded. I'm sorry, like we have to just see things for what it is. You got to see it for what it is. Like just because so many people try to create what they believe is strength, that doesn't mean it's true. Okay, and you don't have to comply to that. You don't have to comply to. It's almost like people trying to rewrite um God's laws, create their own laws. Okay, like that's literally kind of what it is. Um, so yeah, yeah. All right, so that's all I'm gonna talk about on this video. Um, I'm gonna do y'all a card reading, but yeah, just make sure that your boundaries, when you have your boundaries, you don't want to become somebody that's like haughty. Okay, you don't want to get tricked into something that is beneath God in the name of like fending for yourself or like setting those boundaries or even recognizing your opposition. You don't want to be tricked into basing your identity from the opposition, right? Um, you can use it as a gauge of a reminder of why, of who you are, right? Who you are in God. But always keep your identity based in God. Always. Because it's like it can, man, it's like don't be tricked. There are some people who bash readers who talk about love and who talk about soulmate energy, and there are some truths surrounding betrayals and demonic energy that we have to talk about. But we have to be balanced. We have to make sure we also acknowledge um, the good that's showing up in these readings, not just the bad. You don't ever want to overly fixate on the bad or the lower vibrations because that's imbalance within itself. Like that's not like God. You'll always be able to tell those who are truly ordained, okay, because they're not going to be like kind of leading this movement to just those people are karmic. Those people are da, 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 da. Not everybody who's karmic are lost causes. Again, there is a battle over everybody's souls, all of us. Some people lose those battles. Some people lose the war. Some of us don't. Some of us, we are able to help our war buddies. But we have to understand, we gotta have the wisdom like, hey, I'm trying to pull this person. But this person is heavy. And it's like, this is the furthest I could pull this person. If I keep trying to pull this person, there's a possibility I'm going to get bombed. And I'm going to be unable for now the both of us to make it out. It's like you got to have that kind of discernment when you're dealing with warfare. Okay? Like, damn. This is about the furthest I can do. Like, if we're tied together and we're in the ocean and we both are like at risk of drowning, this is the furthest I can do to try to like pull you up out of the water. But I can't commit so much so to trying to pull you out at my expense so that now we're both drowning. It's like that don't make sense, right? That don't make sense. That don't make sense. So you should never feel bad about trying. You should definitely discern whether certain shit is like worth fighting for. You gotta choose your battles wisely. Again, if somebody put their hands on you, if somebody put your life in danger and shit like that, like, come on, come on, you gotta have sense, okay? You gotta have sense out here. You know what I'm saying? Don't be no dummy for nobody, okay? Whether you, regardless of how strong you are, you have weaknesses still, okay? But don't be no dummy for nobody, okay? And definitely don't be a dummy to yourself, okay? Mm-hmm. Don't ignore yourself. Don't ignore yourself. And don't doubt who you are. And if you feel unsure, you need more one-on-one time with God. You do. You should not be finding someone else to be codependent on just because they're behind a screen. You need one-on-one. And I feel like even that desire for closeness, you need to master that closeness with God above any and everybody else. That closeness with self and God. So that any event that anything becomes shaky with any of these other people or points of contact, your foundation is solid with the divine. Yeah. All right, y'all. So I feel like I'm beating the dead horse. Lord. But it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing to reach mastering yourself, or like who you are at the core, like your inner child, that sweetheart. It's a beautiful thing to master that, but also master properly protecting yourself. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Like, I'm not about to be Ebenezer Scrooge out here, like because of y'all's projections. Lord have mercy. No. But you get to move in a way that you may possibly have the effect. So the kind of effect that the outcome of Ebenezer Scrooge at the end, how he became like healed, okay, that kindness, that loving spirit within him was able to resurface. You know, we have the power to generate those kinds of outcomes in people by maintaining who we are, right? Yeah. Identifying the problems and addressing the problems, instead of just being a bystander, right? Yeah. And I feel like, honestly, compared to like how evil really can manifest, like when we think about trafficking, when we think about abuse and child abuse and these horrific things and horrific crimes and demonic rituals and murders unnecessarily and stuff like that. When we think about that being present in our world, it's like it's easy to find ways to be an advocate of balance, an advocate of harmony, even if that does require benevolent darkness, right? So, yeah. It's like people will try to deem certain things demonic that are actually not, okay? Mind you, we're light and dark. So, for example, There's somebody who you're keen in your insight and your intuitive abilities. There's somebody who's masquerading themselves as like, okay, as harmless, but you're able to see and penetrate that. Yeah, nah, this person, this person is really malevolent. They're operating out of malevolent light, and they've been able to confuse others with this energy. But I'm able to see, and so I'm going to approach it the way they were supposed to approach it, but they didn't because of their lack of discernment. And so, in a situation like that, yeah, like people may try to paint you out as the villain. You got to be okay with that. You got to be okay with that. Because what's the truth of this situation? It doesn't matter what they do. Okay, they try to launch some type of mob against you. What is the truth in the situation? That's what it's about. That's what it's about. And it doesn't matter how strong your enemy appears. If they are motivated or if their strength is derivative from evil intent, okay, or evil in general, they are not going to defeat you. They are not going to defeat you. The only way they can defeat you is if you submit to them, if you cast aside your devotion, your knowledge about God, if you conform and comply to their deception, you feel like you're outnumbered, you feel like God is not powerful, then whatever your strong enemy may be, that is how they defeat you. That's how they defeat you. You know, like when people get so overwhelmed and worn down that they feel like the best solution or alternative is to take their own lives. You know that's the goal of demonic energy, especially if you're a sweetheart, especially if you have some type of light that can cause a ripple effect. Of course, you know what I'm saying? Like, of course. So no, like, don't. God don't want you to do that. God gave you the life. You know, why would He take away? God found you worthy of having life, of having a pure heart, of being able to feel. Okay, it's like don't allow anybody else and don't rob yourself of that deep feeling, those intense feelings that you're able to tap into. Don't rob yourself of the beauty that you're also going to experience in life. Don't do that. Don't let yourself be tricked out of those intense, like you being super sensitive and all of that shit. Imagine like when you experience things that are like that, what God could just really show you, like portions and expressions of heavenly things, heavenly experiences. Don't let anybody rob you of that because of some evil shit that you experience or some evil shit that they're trying to bring to you. Don't let nobody rob you of that. Take your own life. Don't do that. Don't put yourself in situations where people want to hijack or rob you of that. Like, because you feel like you got to prove something to people. As long as you prove to God that you're grateful, okay, for God protecting you, okay, you're grateful for the beautiful experiences that you still encounter, even amidst chaos, right? It's almost like when they were on the boat and there was a storm in the ocean and Jesus was asleep and he woke up and he see everybody like just reflecting the chaos of the weather opposed to meeting that chaos with peace. It's like there were things to still be grateful for. For one, they had each other. Two, the boat was still intact. The boat was intact. The boat wasn't being destroyed. I know in some situations, in some storms, yeah, like the boat can be destroyed, and yes, like your life is more at risk. At no time in that particular biblical story was it mentioned that the boat had holes in it, the boat was sinking, the boat was being torn into pieces. None of that. None of that. Nobody was struck with lightning. Okay, everybody was still intact, even though this chaotic storm was happening around them. Everybody was still intact. And the fact that they weren't able to recognize that, hey, you're following Jesus, you're following like a divine being that's very powerful, right? Somebody who can walk on water. Y'all in the ocean in the middle of the storm, but you're in alignment. You're connected to a prayer warrior, a person who's directly sourced to the divine, all powerful, even the creator and controller of the weather. It's like you have to think that big, think that high when it comes to God. And you're not doing that. What's up, Maria? Okay. All right, y'all. I don't even know where I left off at, so I'm gonna end this here. This is just like a real talk with the Authentic Empress. I just want people to be reminded, yo, just don't ever forsake God and what God is telling you, and don't forsake your own intuition, even when you are seeking or receiving counsel or advice from any other source. Even like if you develop some type of trust in that source, it's like don't forsake your own intuition. Even still, pray over the information you receive. You know, yeah, and trust that you can tap into God directly yourself. You don't always have to go through somebody else to directly tap into God. You don't. You don't. You don't. And if you move, I'm telling you, you only make yourself vulnerable. You make yourself vulnerable to some BS if you move like that. Like, and I understand the way different cultures and customs have been like arranged. Okay, um, like oh, go to your pastor. And I'm not saying don't go to these people, but if you don't reach a space within yourself when you can have a receptive ear to God directly, that's a dangerous place to be. That is a dangerous place to be. I'm telling you. Don't always just take stuff and run with it. Like, ask for clarity from God. And listen for the clarity. Like, be patient with yourself. Listen, don't be so quick to doubt yourself because of pain that you've experienced or feeling like because things happen out of your control or other people switched up. Like, you thought something about somebody and then they switched. That doesn't mean what you thought was wrong. But something else that I talk about too is that one of the main things that's going to be attacked in life is love. Real, genuine love. However it shows up, wherever it shows up, there's going to be opposition against love to try and deteriorate the love or turn it into something else that is not love or that pollutes, that kills, that steals, that destroys. And you simply just have to follow the guidance God gave you and move accordingly. Move accordingly. Be prepared. Okay? Just be prepared. Just be prepared. It's literally like the weather. Okay? Be prepared. Some of those switch ups may be more chaotic than others. It may be volcanic in nature. It may be a flood in the, you know what I'm saying? Like the things that manifest outside of us, wildfires, these are, we experience this energy emotionally, like in the emotional realm, in the spirit realm, not just in the physical realm. But it's like, be prepared. Be prepared, okay, for that change and to move accordingly. All right, you guys. See you guys in the next video.